Welcome to Muddy River News this week. I'm Bob Goff. My guest is Steve Belko, political science professor out at John Wood Community College, and we are about a month or so into the Donald Trump administration, and it's been exciting. Is that a way to put it?
Yeah, you bet it has.
I
Yeah.
mean,
what a time to be in political science.
I mean, it's just, how many of us have sat here and complained, government's too big, government just is getting out of control, yada, yada. And then he comes in with Elon Musk, and they're like, okay, we're just going to start hacking away.
Yeah.
I guess, can they? Do they have to go through? I mean, he's the president. Does he have? But these are things that have been put in place by Congress. The suspending has been put in place by Congress. Can he do what he's doing?
Sure. At this point in American history, folks, the government can do anything it wants, basically. It's not how it was founded, but basically Congress, the courts, and definitely the executive basically can do whatever they want as long as they feel that it's constitutional within their bounds. And so it certainly is a flurry of activity you rarely see, if ever. There's no doubt about that.
It's the old adage. It's like you're trying to get a drink of water out of a fire hose.
Exactly.
Like.
Yeah.
And it seems like Donald Trump, the President Trump, has always been kind of a shock and awe guy, and just to try to just throw as much stuff against the wall, see what sticks, see what gets through, stop me if you can. And that certainly seems to be the strategy here.
Yeah, and sometimes, and I can never always say the word correctly, obfuscation. Because a lot of the things that he said, he doesn't, I don't think he means, but you don't know it. Yeah. You don't know it, and so if you're on, if you're Canada, if you're Gaza, or, or Ukraine, Greenland or something, Panama Canal, you're like, he might be for real. And all of a sudden some delegates show up for the United States, some commissioners to Panama, and you're like, well, maybe it could be serious. But it also throws off, attention on other things domestically that are going on. The curious aspect is, when does it slow, or does it slow? I mean, is this going to be 4 years, or everything's done, and then we kind of can hit the golf course?
Well, I mean, the first, Trump won the first go around. There was a lot of this, and then he lost the midterms. Yes. And then that's when he started getting impeached and all that. He has no guardrails right now in Congress. Does it look like in 2 years he'll get guardrails from Congress?
I don't think so. If I was a betting man, of course I kind of lost the presidential election, so maybe I'll lose this one. I would say that the Republicans will maintain, possibly pick up a seat or two. So I think he'll still have a Republican Congress. But lots of times, as a political science, as a political historian, sometimes your worst enemy is your own party in Congress. We've had times where Bill Clinton, had Democrats, and it just went off the rails. He's not the first one. FDR had a little trouble with the Democrats when he was president. It's not the first time to have your party in both chambers of Congress. You're not getting along.
Well, but let's be honest. This iteration of Republicans doesn't seem to have the strongest spines in the world.
No, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. You mentioned FDR.
Yes.
Of course, we had the New Deal. I mean, the longest-serving president we've ever had. He did a few things that maybe people looked at and thought he was a bit of a dictator as well at times. Do you see a Trump-FDR correlation? I know a lot of people will laugh at that, but do you see one?
Not necessarily. I know during the first election, a lot of political pundits kind of related him to Andrew Jackson, which is technically the first imperial presidency. And as a Jacksonian scholar, at first I thought no, because the Jacksonians didn't care for the rich folks, democracy, not aristocracy. And he comes from wealth. But then I thought, well, much of these democracy-promoting Jacksonians, some of them were planters, they were merchants, they had money as well. But the idea of really helping the people, that no matter who you are. That's about I do agree with that correlation. I don't think Jackson should be hanging in the White House with some of these folks, but sure. I do see kind of that democracy, little d, part of that. I think that if you are the little guy, to put it that way, which FDR tried to help as well, the commoner, the common man, us, we the people, there is a correlation with that, whether it's presidential power that's leading the way. FDR, we have to remember, had a Congress behind him that was willing to experiment. And eventually, with the scare of the Supreme Court, the stitch in time to save 9, he gets that branch as well afterwards. So especially after 1937, you have all three branches going at it at the same time. There could be a correlation with that now if he retains Republican rule in Congress, and basically the Supreme Court, you would think, would uphold. We don't know. But if he does get to appoint some justices, well, then that might secure that branch as well. The difference is FDR was at a point where the federal government was becoming extremely centralized, powerful. States could not handle the Great Depression at all. And so you see kind of a withdrawal of state power. I think we see the pendulum coming back, and I'm curious how it will butt up against what Trump's doing, because it's very centralized from Washington, D.C., which apparently the people wanted. They voted for it.
Yeah.
But we're also seeing a dramatic shift back to state power, states' rights, the 10th Amendment throughout the country, red and blue. And I'm curious how that'll work out.
That was the whole point when it came to the abortion issue. He said, "Along, I just want to kick it back to the states."
Correct.
And and we live in a state that has a governor who is probably looks like he's going to be the one guy who's going to say, okay, I'm going to try. He's poisoning. J.B. Pritzker's poisoning himself as the Trump alternative.
Correct. Yeah, and there's several. Governor of Michigan, Whitmer, Hochul of New York. You don't hear much from California right now, but there's been a few. Maine has kind of been in the news here lately. I don't know how far that's going to go. I really don't. It's definitely not going to play in the rural parts of New York, Michigan, and Illinois. So what's going to happen there? And I don't see any thwarting of any power.
But when you also look at, say, Virginia, which has become a key state when you talk about electoral politics these days, if they're going to go in and whack all these federal jobs, a lot of these people live in Virginia, and they're not going to be happy about that. So isn't that going to maybe put Virginia in play more for the Democrats if this keeps up?
Oh, it could. Definitely Northern Virginia is heavily Democrat. It may have some effects on Maryland as well, since part of the District of Columbia is also there.
Sure.
I think we've heard some rumors of Tim Kaine kind of coming back. I think he was the running mate with Clinton. Hillary Clinton. Yeah. I had heard some rumors that he might be putting himself out there for some type of leadership position. So, coincidentally, from Virginia. Yeah. So I don't know if that's a factor or not.
But seriously, at this point in time, what's the Democrats' alternative? The old Democratic strategist James Carville is basically he wrote a piece in the New York Times this week that said Democrats kind of need to just play possum or roll over and play dead for a while and kind of regather themselves. He was the first one who really came out and said Biden should have stepped down. He was really against the whole we're too woke thing.
Correct.
So Carville's laid out some things that have really come to fruition. What do Democrats do now?
Well, and I can do this, I don't say personally, but professionally. For those who don't know, I do have a PhD in history, but I teach political science and history. But my first career was in politics as a politician at both the state and federal level, definitely electoral politics at some times. And I was one of those young whippersnappers back in '92 that worked for Clinton and Gore. I'm a Missouri Democrat, which you tend to be conservative, moderate to conservative, and we don't exist anymore. I left politics, went off to Mississippi State to do my PhD, came back, decided I'm going to get my career started, and me and all my friends who were state reps, and one of them was the Speaker of the House, are all gone. And it's not term limits. They either just can't be Republican or they went Republican, and I'd say 9 out of 10 of us did. I don't think I shifted in the spectrum. The spectrum shifted on me. And so I think the problem with the Democratic Party is it's far, far too left. And it really doesn't represent the moderate Democrat, which sometimes we call them Reagan Democrats.
Yeah, it's the old Reagan adage. Yeah. I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me.
That's it. I honestly think it's that simple. And coincidentally, Carville was pretty much the campaign manager guru for the Clinton-Gore campaign. Mm-hmm. So maybe you ought to listen to him. I don't stand with the Clintons anymore,
but you had a case where the Republicans had 12 years of control of the White House, and Bill Clinton, this governor from a small southern state, came basically out of nowhere and became a two-term president.
Yes.
And and again, he was a guy who let's be honest, his path was rocky because of some of his choices and the way he conducted himself.
Certainly,
and
in the personal realm.
Yeah, and in this round and in this day and age of politics, that's all going to come out, and that's what has and people are going to throw mud, people are going to make up stuff, they're going to create their own facts anyway. So the Democrats, I don't know who their next Clinton is. And again, is it Pritzker? Is it Shapiro? Is it whomever? I don't know who it is. But it is definitely somebody who I think has to just really, appeal to us, appeal to the working class, the moderates, and again, get away from some of the way left goofy stuff. There's plenty of way right goofy stuff too.
Oh, there is, absolutely.
But the left goofy stuff gets magnified by it started with Limbaugh and went all the way through. So they're the ones that really need to kind of just look. We're just trying to worry about kitchen table issues. We're trying to worry about working class jobs. We're worried about your kids and student debt and all that stuff. That's the stuff that I think if they stick to that playbook, they get that, and then just try to paint the Republicans as the oligarchy. I think that's a winning strategy if they can get it sold.
It is, and it could actually be a winning strategy for everybody on both sides of the aisle, because if the Republicans are actually gaining more and more among the center, the moderates, obviously I think the election did show that. Yeah. And then you kind of pull the Democratic Party more towards the center, Republicans stay there, and you might have 50-50 of the country, moderate Democrat, moderate Republican. They might actually get along, and we might actually be able to have a greater voice and have the people have the legislation or the policies or the direction we need from Washington, D.C. So it could be something positive there.
Yeah, I mean, the things that unite us should be stronger than the things that divide us.
Right.
And it seems like it every so often it takes a national emergency to make us all realize that. And sometimes, when it's 9/11, we rally and again, there were some post 9/11 things that happened that were a little and then COVID happened. And there were some post-COVID things that were kind of
Yeah.
So it's like we have these moments, but then we go back to our neutral corners after that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And hopefully we will not have a national emergency.
No, we don't want that. Nobody wants that.
Nobody wants a war or a terrorist attack.
No, we don't want that.
No, yeah.
But it's just like every time something like that happens, we have these small moments, but then again, you have all these issues on either side, and we're still going to be the partisan blinders are not going away.
No, they're very intense, and I know we talked about this before, but a lot of these movements across the country, kind of state secession movements, forming their own state, we're seeing red becoming redder, which would make the blue bluer. And so what you're doing is you're actually dividing more along the partisan. There are blinders on that, and that could be a danger.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because that was one thing I did mean to touch on, and we got talking on other stuff. New Illinois,
right?
Is that going to happen?
I don't know. I do know what's not going to happen, folks. I just know Indiana recently, it's a House Bill 1008, which has made it out of committee, is proposing to take the 33 Illinois counties, southern and western, who have all they voted to do by large margins. Many of these, there's only a couple that weren't in the 70%. Hancock and Brown were two of them, so we got two border counties.
Right.
It's a non-binding referendum, but it basically encourages county officials to consider creating their own state. So it's technically not secession. They're only leaving Illinois. They're joining the Union, basically, as a 51st state. There's other ones out there, so it could be if it happens in California, Oregon, Texas. Maryland has a little bit of one. Colorado had some counties wanting to join. Wyoming. Who knows? But it's a movement that is pretty powerful. But there's constitutional reasons why it could not happen. Historically, it's happened a lot. Most people don't know that. Maine, West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, these are all, they go against what it says in Article 4, Section 3 of the Constitution, and which is you can interpret that clause all over the place. So there's really no constitutional bounds to it. Now, the state of Illinois would have to agree to it, and so would Congress. But Congress is controlled by the Republican Party. They would love to see New Illinois because they just picked up 2 new U.S. senators. Yeah. The Democratic Party does not, because Cook County and the surrounding area would still be blue. Yeah. And I am a rural Missourian, a rural Illinoisan, definitely. But I do got to warn my colleagues that it could be financially not a good move. And just an example is we always kind of think all our money goes to Chicago, to County, and it actually is not. No. They produce more tax dollars that go southward through Illinois. I know in 2018, I think it was Southern Illinois University did a study of where the Treasury funds, the tax dollars goes. And so, for example, the Southern and West, these 33 counties, for every dollar they put into the state treasury, they can get up to anywhere from $2 to 81 cents, some of these. So they're almost doubling, maybe tripling the money coming back. So if we get rid of that fountain, who's going to pay for the schools? Who's going to pay for the infrastructure? Fire departments, police departments. I know some of these are municipal things, but who's going to pay for all that if it is a new state? Are you going to raise taxes? And that's an issue they got, you got to think of.
And I think that, I mean, I've got friends who work in state government who would basically just say that take away from Chicago and Illinois becomes Mississippi or something. I don't think it's that drastic, right. But I mean, it's still very, very similar and very much along those lines. Right. And I just don't, again, it's going to take a lot of moving parts. And you talk about the whole thing of having the other senators and all this stuff. Remember, we have North and South Dakota who each have 2 senators, and their combined population is, I don't know, a few million. And then you have California, who also has the 2 senators with their multi-million population. So until we get some more restructuring along those lines, until if they're going to give Elon Musk and Doge the keys to restructure Congress, I don't think that's going to happen either. I just don't see where a lot of this stuff is going to get a lot of legs. I mean, I know a lot of people would really like Adams County, Illinois, to become Adams County, Missouri. A lot of people, they've talked about that. I mean, heck, you and I, I'm sure, have several friends who have been in here and who now who have lived across the river.
Yes,
and
I know many.
So
come to the dark side.
Yeah, again, in my home state as well. I mean, it's. But I look at it and I just think the whole New Illinois movement, as much as I understand why you want to do it, I just don't see how it's going to really get legs and steamer legs.
Yeah, one of the things about it is isn't that how democracy is supposed to work? Yeah. Now I know it's the Supreme Court case, and 2 cases in 1962 and 1964 basically makes our state legislature, both chambers, based on population. Even though our federal constitution is not, because the Senate is not based on population, it's based on land area, state. Maybe there's something that we could return to prior to those Supreme Court cases, where we may take our House of Representatives in Illinois and definitely make it, population based. But is there something we could do to tweak our Senate to make it maybe less on population? I don't, you don't want to see wealth or anything like that, but what could change there as an area that would give the rural areas just a little bit more of a voice? And I don't know. That's just looking down the line. I don't think we here in Illinois are going to get to that point. But just to put it in perspective, there's 102 counties, and you've got 33 already that says bye, or essentially they wouldn't mind doing that. And if you go back to the 2010 gubernatorial election, the Democrat won Illinois with 4 counties. Yeah. 4 of 102 determined the governor. And so you got to think, well, that's just not right. Yeah. And it doesn't happen across the river, where I live currently, my family state, Missouri. The nuances with Kansas City and St. Louis are not the same in the rural areas of Missouri as Chicago is with Illinois. Right. And a lot of people, too, forget, and Missouri forgets this, too, we have Boone County, which goes blue because of University of Missouri, Columbia. Same thing with Champaign-Urbana. Yeah. And it's nowhere near Chicago. It's basically in the heart of New Illinois. Yeah. Are they going to want to do that? Are they going to want to be a part of that? So it's just, and if it happens, and say it does happen, say there's a New Illinois, and everybody's happy in these 33 counties, plus some of those will probably join with it. I think we just become more red and more blue. Sure. And I do think Illinois is, if you look at it, Illinois is just one of a few states that's really happening. Washington, Oregon, California have these split-offs that are definitely blue versus red, and they're tired of it.
Well, at one time, Illinois, Illinois had numerous Republican governors, and and they've also for years had. Usually, Illinois was one of those states where it ended up they'd have one Republican senator and one Democratic senator for years. Had Charles Percy and guys like that years ago before Illinois became more blue, I guess. And again, I think when you talk about those 4 counties, I mean, I know trees and cows don't vote, but still, it's still that area and that concentration of people And again, it's just that whole kind of a hive mentality, I guess, if you want to call it lack of a better term, where more people are going to, like, say, coalesce and be more supportive of one way or the other. I mean, that's what's happened in, Quincy and Adams County. We've gone, over, the President Trump has taken, 70% of the county every time he runs. So it's really kind of become that way too. And again, I also remember the days when, Missouri was a blue state.
You bet. When I was in politics, it was
up.
all 5 state officials elected were Democrat, and 2 U.S. senators sometimes, and rural congressmen.
Yeah.
But those areas are now solidly red because I think the spectrum has moved.
Yeah.
Whether it moves again, we don't know. And like I said, we do always have these big pendulum swings of partisanship. It's not the first time. No. We fought a whole bloody civil war essentially over that, and so I don't think that'll happen again. But just things that we got to think about. It's just it's democracy. I'm sorry if you're basing things on population, just because you're all in one block of a major city and some sky rise, and you got more there than you do in Schuyler County. Yeah. It's just the nature of it. Yeah. And Chicago is a very powerful city, but there are states that have equally powerful cities, but the state does not have trouble with them. Right. Atlanta, Georgia kind of pops in my mind. Charlotte, North Carolina. All the ones in Texas. Yeah. Missouri, I mean, we have our animosity with St. Louis back and forth, but it actually has no power.
Right. Missouri has 2 cities that are about the same size,
and they hate each other. So
yeah.
That helps the rural areas.
I was in Missouri when I first learned of St. Louis, Kansas City hatred in 1985 during the World Series when I was at Mizzou.
Oh yes.
And my St. Louis and Kansas City friends got after each other, and I was a Cardinal fan, so I was like aligned with my St. Louis friends. But then I was like, man, my Kansas City friends are jerks all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's
we got over it though.
But at least we got the Chiefs. That kind of helped unify. Because I see a lot of Chiefs flags in the St. Louis area. So
Stan Kroenke took his Rams.
We got
and
no
went
team
home,
anymore.
That's right. So, Steve Belko, always a good chat. I appreciate the time.
Most definitely. Thank you for having me.
All right.
Appreciate it. Good to see you.
You too, man. That's all the time we have for now. I'm Bob Goff. See you next week.